Hey everyone, welcome back to another Brown Bear Digital Marketing YouTube video. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be looking at the two major skills that matter when it comes to the digital marketing industry in 2026. Now, what I've noticed is a lot of people go about this and look at this in the wrong way. They generally go straight to the point, look at some of the finer skills and the harder skills and think, I need to upskill here, I need to learn this is going to get me to the top. You can look at it in a very, very broad sense and then subdivide it and work your way down from there. So there are two very clear areas that people need to understand and know if they want to succeed in this industry, and all other skills that you're going to use segue down from there. Now, the two that matter are, one, people. How are you with people? How are you at building relationships? And number two is numbers. How are you numerically? How are you analytically? And how can you use that to your advantage within a digital marketing context? Now, when it comes to people, there are three things in three areas I look at: sales, psychology, and retention, which I'll touch on. When looking at numbers, there's analysis, strategy, and reporting, which I'm also going to touch on as well. But we're going to start with people, because building relationships is the most fundamental part of not just marketing, but any industry. So again, it doesn't matter whether you're just in digital marketing, if you're in sales, if you're in a supportive role in some capacity. Being good with people is integral, but how you interact with people and how you're going to utilize that within a marketing context is important. So, sales. Why is being good with people important in sales, and how can you then direct that to your marketing business? It works in both a B2B and a D2C standard, where B2B, if you're running your own company or even helping another company that works in a more B2B fashion, you can utilize those skills and those sales techniques to get yourself more clients and more business to help the business grow. In terms of psychology, understanding people can then direct your creatives and your creative strategy, and then utilizing the understanding of people to help run ads that are more effective and are going to help your business grow over time. And then thirdly, retention. Being good with people for the clients and the customers you already have are going to be the most fundamental part to not just growing your business, but ensuring that you stay there. Because again, getting businesses off the ground, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it can be done. There are ways you can kind of penetrate markets quite quickly and efficiently. But then if you don't have a good product, if you don't have good service, if you don't have good relationships, you can get to a six-figure brand quite quickly, and then it can fall off a cliff. And the most important thing from there is retaining those customers with a good quality product or a good quality service, and ensuring that they come back, and then you continue to grow. So you keep the traffic that you've acquired, and then you continue to acquire more and allow your business to develop and generate more revenue week on week, month on month, year on year. So again, let's start with one. Sales. Now, if you're running your own business, sales is an integral part of the process. Everyone knows that. And it's one of those things where not only do you need to know how to do it, if you're running any business, regardless of the industry, sales is the most important technique you're going to realize that you need to get. And again, when you're running a small company, you have to be your own lawyer, your own accountant, your own salesman, your own marketer, all kinds of different things. But sales is the most important trick, because you need to be able to get people to come to your business in the first place, to work with you, and to help you generate revenue, to grow the business to where you want to be. So when it comes to sales, what are we going to look at? We're going to look at running ads, how you run ads for yourself, how you run ads for clients, and how you utilize that skill and technique to grow your business efficiently. So with sales, it's about a few different things. Again, utilizing hooks, understanding those, and how we're going to make sure that they can direct traffic towards your site effectively. So again, you have a good creative, which we'll talk about in the psych section. But again, you run a strong ad, you have a good hook, you get people on board, but the call to action at the end, how does that make sure that you leave a positive taste in the consumer's mouth and you make them want to go to your website to inquire about more, to get to know you, to see what you have to offer, and consider the idea of actually working with you in the future? Psych. The psych part's huge, especially within the context of digital marketing and someone that's been in this industry for now 7 years. Understanding how people think makes everything a lot easier. Understanding what they want to hear, what they want to do, how they want to work with you, how they build partnerships. It makes a huge, huge difference, both in terms of building ads that can scale, building ads that will be effective in the right market, building ads that can push products to the right people and then generate conversions and sales. But at the same time, it also makes a huge difference when it comes to that retention side of things, which we'll get to shortly. Understanding how people want relationships to be, what kind of service delivery they need, and what's considered good service. So when it comes to service delivery, myself and the Brown Bear team, we make sure we are quick on comms, we're effective, we're efficient, we're direct, we're succinct. We don't add layers of fat to what we're going to communicate. We don't move slowly. We make sure we're communicating all the time, frequently, incessantly. to make sure the clients feel like they're heard, feel like they're getting what they need, and like they're being serviced by someone that cares about their business as much as they do too. And then thirdly is retention. Retention, again, is massive because, again, you can acquire a bunch of different customers, clients, et cetera, but if you can't keep them on board, and I think Black Friday is a really good example of a time where this happens constantly for a lot of different businesses in a lot of different industries, where maybe you run a sale, you throw extra budget behind your ads, you push your product out, and you're running 40% off. You haven't actually measured the impact that this can have on your unit economics and your profitability, and you're like, sell. You want to push it aggressively. People say, oh, look, this brand's 40% off. That's great. I'll have a look. They buy, they purchase. Your margins have been eviscerated, so you don't make any profit on the first order. This person didn't really have any affinity with your brand to begin with. They maybe didn't really care that much about the product. They bought it just because it was on sale and they thought about it loosely before. That person then therefore never comes and buys again. And that's the importance of retention, because the retention you'll see if you look at your customer cohort analysis on Shopify is always the lowest of the year. November has got the worst retention of any month in the calendar. So how do we make sure we're retaining effectively? Again, that's just an example. Acquiring customers outside of Black Friday, and that's a great start. But you want to make sure you're putting systems and plans in place in order to keep your clients happy. So again, this comes down to two different, very specific things. One is the product quality, or the service quality if you're a service provider. How high quality is the product and the service that we're providing to our consumers to make sure that they want to come back to us? So again, within the digital marketing scope, if you're an agency or a contractor and you're like, well, I don't have much control over the product that's being pushed to our customers, realistically, then it becomes a bit more difficult. But you need to make sure you know the product, you understand the product inside and out. You work closely with the founders, the marketing team, whoever it is that's across that product and that brand, to understand it inside and out. So the content you're running and what you're doing to get people on in the first place is relevant enough to what they're looking to purchase and to buy. So when they do, they don't feel like they've been misled or the product doesn't quite tick the right boxes for them. And therefore they're like, actually, I don't really want this product again because I was expecting A and B and I got C and D. You want them to expect A and B. You want to provide A and B, and you want them to be like, wow, that was excellent. And depending on the product, obviously some things have a greater repurchase rate than others. For example, couches, you're not going to rebuy one of them for a very long time unless you're literally buying a brand new house and filling the entire thing with furniture. But some products, moisturizer and kind of cosmetics in general, really good repurchase rate. If you provide a product that people want and need, then if it's something that generally gets topped up once a month, once a quarter, they're going to come back and buy from you. And in those sorts of industries, you really need to make sure, although you should do it anyway, that your product lives up to the expectations that you provide in the ads and the assets that you provide for your customers before they go on to purchase. Because the last thing you want is for them to expect one thing, get another, and then go, well, when I do top up, when I do buy again, I'm certainly not buying from you. Cool. Moving on to numbers. Now, there's a few different areas in which understanding numbers is important in marketing. And again, this is one of those things where it sounds quite stupid because it goes without saying. Obviously, you need to be numerically competent to work within marketing industry. But again, what does it need to entail? Obviously, there's a lot of hard skills, running ad platforms, looking at the metrics, understanding what's working, scaling budgets, that sort of thing. But one, we look at analysis. One of the most difficult parts, or one of the most important parts of working in marketing, is being able to analyze data. Why is that? Because essentially what you can do is you can work with a client, you can run a bunch of different ads. They might even provide you with the creative so you don't have to lead on strategy. But if you just have an ABO campaign or even a CBO and you're just throwing ad after ad after ad in there and it's working, it's not working, you're getting insights, you're not doing much with them, how's the account ever supposed to improve? How's it ever supposed to grow? How's it ever supposed to scale? That's where the insights and the analysis are important. Because every time you put an ad into an account, you should have a very clear goal in place for what you want to achieve. And then what you need to do is give yourself an allocated amount of time or an allocated amount of spend, more importantly, and then measure how the creative has gone against the goal or even a campaign or an account average. And then from there, you've got clear learnings. So, if we're looking at the creative, we'll go creative. Has it worked? Yes or no? Have a very clear understanding as to which, and then the question is, why? There are way too many accounts and businesses that I've worked with in the past where you're working on creatives and what they just want to know is, what was the ROAS? Was the ROAS effective? Did it work? Did we get sales? But then they're kind of looking at the wrong things, because the last thing you want to do is to run an ad look at the ROAS after you've hit, let's say, $1,000 in spend and go, our account average sitting at a 2.5. We want to be sitting at a 0. We want to be sitting at a 3 or a 3.5. We end up getting a 1 or a 1.5. And then look at that and think, okay, this ad clearly didn't work. We're going to scrap it. And then you go, you delete the ad. You don't do anything more with it. You don't learn from it. You just say that was bad. Instead, what you need to look at is the relevant metrics around that, from that insight that came from the analysis and the numerical understanding of the creative that you're using, and allowing that to drive next steps. So let's say you run an ad. We'll call it ad 1. Let's say that you're running ad 1 and you're like, cool, set this live in the account. We've got a clear goal. We want to hit 3 ROAS. Ad 1 runs, you spend $1,000, 1K at a 2 ROAS. And you've gone, all right, this asset is not for us. It is a failure. What you need to then do is to work your way down with the understanding of the metrics that the platform has to offer to see what you can do next to improve. Because otherwise you're just going to say, it didn't work, no clear learnings, let's just try something new. And you're going to go for another Hail Mary. Let's just pick a different product. Let's just get Claude to write us a different hook or a different line or something we can kind of use, or a different angle that we can try and leverage, or a different concept. Instead, you've already gone to the effort of putting this together. You've done a lot of the heavy lifting. But what you might notice is, all right, CPCs were 40 cents. That's reasonable. That's within target. That's fine. Okay, so the creative was actually getting pretty cheap traffic. That's fine. That's good. But we noticed that the hook rate, HR, was actually 5%. So we've gone to the effort of putting this ad together, and we're not seeing a great deal of conversions. It's not working particularly well. The CPCs and the CPMs are relatively cheap, but the hook rate, 5%. 5%. Really, really low. On any good creative, the minimum should be 20. Average is probably 20 to 25. Slightly above is probably 25 to 30, and 30 to 40 is chef's kiss. Lovely. If you get above 40, tremendous. But then anything below, obviously, that initial barometer that was mentioned is going to be quite poor. So again, 5% is not a good hook rate. So the problem is, if you've got a 5% hook rate, for every 100 people that see that ad, or let's go even every 20 people that see that ad, one person gets past the first 2 to 3 seconds. So your first 2 to 3 seconds might be actually quite poor. And there's a learning in that where what can we change, what can we do differently to improve performance? Because from second 4 or 5 onwards, the last 25 seconds might be exceptional. We just don't know because no one's reached there, or very few people are reaching there to actually pathway through to the website and purchase the product. So instead of going and scrapping it and starting again with a new creative, what you're going to do is you're going to scrap the hook, go with the founder or the UGC creator or whoever's basically put this content together for you. Go to them and say, cool, we want 10 new hooks. And here are the different hooks we're going to try based on this angle, this angle, this angle. So again, to get this hook rate up, we're going to go and we're going to create 10 hooks. Just like that, from that one piece of creative that was considered a failure, we've now got 10 new ads. Because again, even in the era of Andromeda, what you've probably noticed is that, again, they say, all creatives that are the same are going to be grouped together with the same audiences. Therefore, it's not a creative test, and therefore your account's going to basically hit a brick wall or a ceiling if you continue to run the same ads with slight different differentiations. But what people also fail to understand is that the hook is the most important part of the ad. Because if the hook fails, the ad fails. So again, if you have very clear different hooks on every single ad, Meta will identify it as a different creative, reach a different audience, and give you the opportunity to actually scale that asset in many, many different ways. I've done it in dozens of accounts in the last 6 to 12 months, and it genuinely does work. So what you should then do from those sorts of learning is understand 10 different hooks, how do they go? And what might happen is you'll create all these different hooks, you'll get them in the account, and you'll find, hey, actually, a few of these ads are starting to work. And now that we're getting people past the first 3 seconds, the rest of the ad that we could see with the limited amount of traffic it was getting was working effectively, still is. So we're getting a lot more people to site, we're doing it a lot more effectively, and we're getting conversions. So what seemed like a failed ad then became a successful ad, a winning ad, so to speak. So we spoke about analysis. And again, that kind of leads into the strategy, which comes down to the creative strategy we spoke about, where it's about understanding which parts of the ads are working, which parts aren't, and what adjustments and changes can be made to inform your creative strategy to help grow your business through paid media. Now, in terms of the numerical understanding and numbers within marketing, understanding strategy is integral. So how can we use that to direct strategy? Now, that was more granular in terms of the last thing we spoke about with the hook specifically and the creative specifically, but how can it inform wider strategy? So let's take that same ad we just spoke about, and again, we'll call it ad 1. We've now turned ad 1 into a winning formula. Give that one a tick. But then how can we allow that to inform wider decision making? Because we don't want to look at ad one and think that was good and then compartmentalize that, put it away, and then just go into something completely different next. We don't want to just stop there. That's kind of, again, we can scale that ad pretty effectively, but eventually they will also hit a ceiling. So what can we do next? What insights and learnings can we get from that? So again, look at the CPCs, look at the hook rates, look at the click-through rates, look at the conversion rates, everything that came from that ad, and understand what worked, and also look at the audiences. Because it's like, cool, we are no longer manually doing audience targeting. The platform does that for us through the creative that we're creating. So understanding what assets are reaching the right audiences, getting conversions and why, and allowing that to direct our future creatives within the account. So moving forward, ad one informs ad two. Ad two informs ad three. And all of these become winners. Cool. So again, when we look at the wider picture and that big umbrella of creative strategy is more than just one ad at a time, especially if you have them siloed or working separately, because that lack of clarity or consistency is going to impact your performance. So if we've identified that ad one worked because we finally got the hook right and we already had a good ad to begin with. So if I'm selling joggers, maybe the hook was a UGC creator who was sick of getting chafing. And we basically had a really engaging hook, and the hook was, going for a run, oh my God, sick of getting chafing, use these shorts, something like that. Something really engaging where it's just like, I'm so sick of chafing. It's like, why have they got that? I actually have that though. Get that curiosity, get them past the first few seconds, and then get into the ad, which then communicates and delivers the information that the person needs to therefore buy the product. So again, what we will have noticed is the call to action was, and stop chafing today, start enjoying running. Cool. Everyone that got through, a lot of click-throughs, a lot of people going to site and a lot of people buying, that worked. The information that we shared about the product being like, this is a really common issue amongst runners, really, really problematic. We found a way to solve this. That's great. It was the first 3 seconds. And then what worked in that first 3 seconds? It was hitting the nail on the head aggressively with a clear message about a common problem that people have. So then for ad 2 and ad 3, we will go ahead and do the same thing. Now, maybe we won't go for the same angle because there's only so much people you can sell to with chafing, so to speak, but maybe it's comfort. Maybe it's, are you sick of shorts that are too tight and don't feel comfortable when you're running? Try these. And then you can have similar sorts of aspects that you can then reuse and repackage for different messages, but the same product to different audiences, and it will allow you to grow. So the final section of numbers is reporting. Now, why is reporting important? One, when it comes to client relations, if you are doing a good job and you cannot communicate to them that you are doing a good job, they are not going to think that you're doing a good job. So again, they might look at the top level insights and information that are going onto the account and be like, look, we're making good revenue at the moment. We don't seem to be spending more than usual when the bills come in for Meta and Google. So efficiency is okay. But if they don't see the work that's going to the account day to day, if you don't speak to them about tests that are being conducted, if you don't give them insights more granular than revenues up, it's very, very difficult for them to understand everything that goes into an account. So when you understand your numbers, you report on them as effectively as possible. You be clear, you be consistent, and you make sure you do it regularly and show the client in different areas what you're doing. So it needs to be more than just, hey, rev is up. It needs to be talking about efficiency. Mind the bad handwriting. It needs to look at incrementality. It needs to look at creatives. It needs to look at so many different areas that are relevant to the client to understand what you're doing and how it benefits them in the long term. So when you have a good month or a bad month, instead of just being like, hey, yeah, we made a few tweaks, performance is down, it could be seasonal, we're going to try a few different things next month. As a client, if I hear that, I'm, let's not say furious, but I'm definitely raising my eyebrows with a few questions being like, doesn't sound hugely promising, I'm not sold. Instead, you can be like, cool, if revenue's down, ad spend is actually slightly up, revenue's gone down, so the efficiency's actually gone down quite heavily. That's not great. But having a look through Shopify, we can see that we're getting a lot more new customers for the spend that we're doing, and returning customers have slowed down. Has there been any adjustments to your EDM process? Oh, actually, yeah, we started sending out less EDMs because we were spending a lot of money on it. We didn't see the value in it. We didn't realize returning customer revenue's gone. Cool, that's a different conversation. New customer revenue's gone up. Now that we're measuring that, okay, that's good to know. That's insightful. That's coming directly from paid ads, and we can see the alignment from 7-day click attribution in Meta, from the work that's going on Google to the new customer revenue in Shopify. Okay, so maybe the overall revenue isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just a matter of where it's coming from and some adjustments that need to be made. They look at that and think, okay, cool, that makes sense. Then we look at the creatives and it's like, cool, just so you know as well, obviously we're looking at all these top level metrics to impact your business, but within the platform, we're looking at a lot of different creative metrics as well. The hook rate, the CPCs, the efficiency of certain ads, how many tests went into the account, which ads are winning spends in the CBO. If you then have all of these conversations on top of the ones you were already having, just like that, the client's like, wow, they're doing a lot of work. Okay, there's a lot of learnings there. Okay, even if it's not working right now and I'm not happy with overall efficiency, I can see a lot of different clear tests and learnings that have been made within the account recently that mean even if it's not working now, it will likely be working soon. And at least if it's not working soon, everything that's going to the account is being learned from. So if it doesn't work soon, that then drives more learnings. So then maybe after then, the next batch will work. So again, those sorts of conversations, those insights, those reports, and rapport with your client make a huge, huge difference. So again, that is why understanding numbers with your business and therefore being able to communicate them through people skills is really, really important when it comes to digital marketing, whether it is running it for your own brand or within the agency space and helping out clients. Thanks so much for watching.